My stepson gave me 30 days to get out of my house, the house I'd lived in for 27 years, the house my husband and I bought together, the house where I raised my children. He said my husband had left it to him in a will, that I had no legal right to stay, that if I didn't leave voluntarily, he'd have me forcibly evicted. He had lawyers, he had documents, he had a judge's signature on an eviction order. I had 30 days to pack up my entire life and leave. I'm 68 years old. My name is Barbara Chen. I'm a widow. My husband David died 8 months ago from a sudden heart attack. We'd been married for 42 years, and 3 weeks after his funeral, his son from his first marriage showed up at my door with paperwork claiming he now owned my home. What happened next exposed a forgery, sent my stepson to prison for 3 years, and resulted in a $300,000 judgment against him that bankrupted him completely. If you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever had someone try to steal your home, if you've ever been told you have no rights when you know the truth, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what I discovered about that what I did to prove it was fake showed that experience and documentation beat fraud every single time. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've dealt with inheritance dispute, I want to know how common this is. The knock on my door came on a Tuesday morning. I was still in my bathrobe, still getting used to being alone in the house. Michael stood on my porch with 2 men in suits. "Barbara," he said, "we need to talk." "I haven't seen you since the funeral," I said. "Come in." He didn't move. "This isn't a social call," he said. "These are my attorneys. We're here to discuss the house." "The house?" I asked. "What about it?" "My father left it to me," Michael said, "in his will. I'm the legal owner now, and I'm giving you 30 days to vacate." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" I said. "This is my house. David and I bought it together. It's in both our names." "Not anymore," Michael said. He handed me a thick envelope. Inside was a copy of a will, dated 2 years ago, signed by David, leaving the house to Michael. The last will and testament of David Chen. It read, "I give, devise, and bequeath my residence at 847 Maple Street to my son, Michael Chen, to have and to hold in fee simple, absolute." I felt dizzy. "David never mentioned this," I said. "He wouldn't do this. The will is legal and binding," one of the attorneys said. "Signed, witnessed, notarized, filed with the county. Your name isn't on this deed anymore. Mr. Chen's death transferred full ownership to Michael. You're now occupying his property." "This is my home," I said. "We've lived here for 27 years. I'm not leaving." "Then we'll evict you," the other attorney said. "We have a court order. You have 30 days. If you're not out by then, the sheriff will remove you and your belongings." They left. I stood in my doorway holding that envelope, shaking, confused, terrified. How could David do this? We talked about the house, about how when one of us died, the other would keep living here, about how this was our home, our life. I called my daughter Emily. "Mom," she said after I explained, "that doesn't make sense. Dad loved you. He wouldn't leave the house to Michael." They barely spoke. "I know," I said, "but Michael has lawyers and a will and a court order." "What do I do?" "Get your own lawyer," Emily said. "Right now." I called 3 attorneys that afternoon. The first 2 said the same thing. If the will is valid and properly executed, there's not much you can. The house belongs to Michael now. You might be able to negotiate more time or a cash settlement for moving expenses, but you can't fight a valid will. The third attorney was different. Her name was Susan Martinez, real estate and probate specialist. She listened to my whole story, then asked a question that changed everything. "Mrs. Chen," she said, "when did your husband supposedly sign this will?" 2 years ago, I said, "according to the date on the document." "And you never knew about it?" "Never," I said. "We talked about everything, money, property, our plans. He never mentioned changing the will." "Were you having marital problems 2 years ago?" she asked. "No," I said. "That was a good year. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary. Took a trip to Hawaii. We're renovating the kitchen. Everything was fine." Susan was quiet for a moment. Then, "I want to examine that will. Something feels wrong. Can you send me a copy?" I did. She called back the next day. "Mrs. Chen," she said, "I think this will is forged." "Why?" I asked. "Several reasons," she said. First, the signature doesn't match your husband's signature on other documents you sent me. The pressure is different. The angle is wrong. Second, the witnesses listed are both deceased. Convenient. Can't ask them if they actually witnessed anything. Third, the notary stamp looks irregular. And fourth, the language is oddly specific. Most wills don't describe property in such detail unless there's a reason. This reads like someone who wanted to make absolutely sure the house went to Michael. Not like something your husband would write. Can we prove it's fake? I asked. Yes, Susan said, but it'll take time and money. We'll need a forensic document examiner to analyze the signature. We'll need to investigate the notary. We'll need to challenge this in probate court. How much time? I asked. 3 months minimum, she said. Maybe 6? And money? $10,000, she said. Maybe more. That's what I'd need on retainer to fight this. I'll pay it, I said. Whatever it takes. This is my home. And I know David didn't sign that will. Within a week, Susan filed a challenge in probate court. Petition to invalidate the will of David Chen based on suspected forgery and fraud. Michael's attorneys immediately filed a motion to dismiss. Claimed I was a bitter widow who couldn't accept her husband's wishes. Argued the will was properly executed and should be honored. The judge scheduled a hearing. But here's the problem. While we fought in court, I still had that eviction order, 30 days to leave. Susan got an emergency stay, argued that evicting me while the will was being challenged would cause irreparable harm. The judge agreed. Temporary stay granted. I could stay in the house until the probate case resolved. But Michael wasn't done. He filed a motion requiring me to pay him rent, argued that if he owned the house, I was essentially a tenant, and tenants pay rent. His attorneys claimed $1,500 per month was fair market value. I'd have to pay him to live in my own home while we proved he'd forged documents to steal it. The judge denied that motion, said it would be inequitable to force me to pay rent on a house I claimed to own. But the fight was just beginning. Susan hired a forensic document examiner, Dr. Raymond Foster, PhD in question document, 30 years experience, expert witness in over 200 cases. He analyzed the will signature, compared it to David's known signatures from tax returns, checks, letters, cards he'd sent me. After 2 weeks, Dr. Foster issued his report. The signature on the will was not written by David Chen. It's a simulation. Someone traced or copied his signature, but the execution shows hesitation, tremor, and unnatural pen lifts consistent with forgery. The pressure patterns are wrong. The connecting strokes are different. In my expert opinion, this signature is a deliberate forgery. We had proof, but we needed more. Susan investigated the notary. The will claimed it had been notarized by Jennifer Wallace. Notary public. Commission number listed. Stamp visible. But when Susan looked up Jennifer Wallace in the state notary database, she found something disturbing. Jennifer Wallace's notary commission had expired 3 months before the will was supposedly notarized, which meant either she'd illegally notarized a document after her commission expired, or someone had used her old stamp to create a fake notarization. Susan contacted Jennifer Wallace. She was 73, retired, living in Arizona. Had moved there 4 years ago. Ms. Wallace, Susan asked, do you remember notarizing a will for David Chen 2 years ago? No, Jennifer said. I moved to Arizona 4 years ago. Stopped doing notary work when I left. I don't even have my stamp anymore. I threw it away when my commission expired. What happened to your notary stamp? Susan asked. I destroyed it, Jennifer said. Cut it up with scissors. That's what you're supposed to do. Do you know Michael Chen? Susan asked. Never heard of him, Jennifer said. Susan asked her to provide an affidavit, stating she didn't notarize the will, that she'd destroyed her stamp, that she'd never met Michael or David. Jennifer agreed, signed the affidavit, had it notarized in Arizona, sent it to Susan. Now we had proof the notarization was fake, but we still needed to prove Michael was behind it. Susan hired a private investigator. His job was to dig into Michael's background, find any connection to forgery, any financial motive, any evidence he'd planned this. What the investigator found was damning. Michael was in debt. Deep debt, credit cards maxed out, car about to be repossessed, house in foreclosure. He owed $87,000 to various creditors. And 6 months before David died, Michael had Googled several incriminating searches. How to forge a signature. Can notary stamps be faked? How long does probate take? Can stepmother challenge will? Evicting family members from inherited property. All of those searches came from Michael's IP address, from his home computer. He'd researched how to commit this fraud, then he'd done it. Susan compiled everything: the forensic signature analysis, the fake notarization, Jennifer Wallace's affidavit, Michael's financial records showing motive, his internet search history showing planning. We filed an amended complaint, adding criminal fraud allegation, requesting the court refer the matter to law enforcement for prosecution. Michael's attorneys tried to get the search history excluded, argued it was obtained without a warrant, but the investigator had gotten it legally. Through a civil subpoena as part of the probate case, it was admissible. The judge reviewed everything in chambers, then issued a preliminary ruling. The court finds substantial evidence that the purported will of David Chen is a forgery. The signature analysis is compelling. The fake notarization is proven. The circumstantial evidence of planning and motive is strong. This matter will proceed to a full hearing. Additionally, the court is referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. 2 weeks later, Michael was arrested, charged with forgery, fraud, attempted theft by deception, filing false documents, 4 felony counts. His attorneys immediately tried to negotiate, offered to drop the will challenge, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, said Michael had been given the will by someone else, that he didn't know it was fake. But the search history destroyed that defense. He'd researched how to forge signature. Then a forged signature appeared on a will benefiting him. That's not a misunderstanding. That's premeditation. The criminal trial happened first. Before the probate case could conclude, Michael pled not guilty, claimed the will was real, that his father had signed it, that he had no knowledge of any forgery. The prosecutor presented our evidence. Dr. Foster testified about the forged signature. Jennifer Wallace testified about the fake notarization. The investigator testified about Michael's debts and his search history. And I testified about my marriage to David, about how we'd bought the house together, about how David never mentioned changing the will, about how Michael barely spoke to his father for the last 10 years, about how Michael showed up 3 weeks after David died with lawyers and eviction papers. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty, all 4 counts. Michael was sentenced to 3 years in state prison, ordered to pay restitution of $38,000, the cost of my legal fees fighting the will. But I wasn't done. With the criminal conviction, the probate court quickly invalidated the will. The forged will is void and of no effect. The court finds that David Chen died with a valid 2004 will that left all property to his spouse, Barbara Chen. She is the rightful owner of the residence. I'd won. The house was mine. Legally, officially, no question. But I'd spent $43,000 in legal fees, months of stress, fear of losing my home, humiliation of having family accuse me of lying. And Michael was responsible for all of it. Susan said I could sue him. Civil suit for fraud, emotional distress, and elder abuse. California has strong elder abuse laws. Victims over 65 can sue for triple damages, plus attorney fees. You were 68 when this happened, Susan said. He tried to steal your home through fraud. That's textbook financial elder abuse. We can go after him, but he's going to prison, I said. He doesn't have money. He's already in debt. That's true, Susan said. But he has assets, a house, a car, retirement accounts. We can get a judgment and collect through foreclosure and wage garnishment. And more importantly, a judgment sends a message that what he did was wrong, that elder abuse has consequences, that you won't be victimized. I filed the civil suit. Michael tried to fight it from prison, but his criminal conviction made the civil case easy. He'd already been found guilty of forgery and fraud. The civil court could use that conviction as proof. The judge granted summary judgment in my favor. No trial needed. Michael Chen is liable for elder financial abuse. The court awards Barbara Chen $100,000 in compensatory damages for attorney fees, emotional distress, and harm. Triple damages under elder abuse statute, $300,000 total, plus attorney fees of $43,000. Total judgment, $343,000. Michael would never pay that. He didn't have it, but the judgment attached to everything he owned. His house went into foreclosure. I bought it at auction for $62,000, sold it for $95,000, $33,000 toward the judgment. His car was seized, sold, $8,000. His retirement accounts were garnished, $42,000 over 3 years. By the time Michael finished his prison sentence, I'd recovered $83,000. Not the full amount, but significant, and his credit was destroyed. The judgment on his record for 10 years. Every time he tried to rent an apartment, get a loan, apply for a job, they'd see it. $343,000 judgment for elder financial abuse. No one would trust him. He destroyed his own life trying to steal mine, but the impact went beyond Michael. Emily, my daughter, contacted David's other children from his first marriage. Michael had 2 siblings, a sister and a brother. Emily told them what Michael had done, showed them the evidence. They were horrified. They'd known Michael had issues, debt, poor decisions, but they hadn't known he'd forged their father's will, that he'd tried to steal my home, that he'd been willing to leave me homeless. Both of them contacted me, apologized, said they hadn't known, said they were ashamed. I appreciated that, but I also told them something important. Michael didn't do this in a vacuum. Your father died. And within 3 weeks, Michael showed up with lawyers and eviction papers. That takes planning. That takes money for attorneys. Did either of you give him money? Did either of you encourage this? They both denied it. But I wondered. Someone had funded Michael's attorneys before the fraud was exposed. Someone had helped him get that eviction order so quickly. But I couldn't prove it, and they wouldn't admit it. So I let it go. I'd won what mattered. My home, my dignity, my peace of mind. A year after the judgment, something unexpected happened. I received a letter from Michael, sent from prison. Barbara, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you hate me. You have every right to. What I did was unforgivable. I tried to steal your home. I forged my father's signature. I lied. I put you through hell while you were grieving. I did all of that because I was desperate, drowning in debt, terrified of losing everything. And I thought, my dad left that house to you, but he was my father too. I convinced myself I deserved something, that you'd be fine, that you could live somewhere smaller. I rationalized it as balancing an inheritance that wasn't fair, but I was wrong. My father loved you. He chose to leave the house to you. That was his right. And I had no right to forge documents and try to steal it. I'm writing to tell you I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix what I did. I know sorry doesn't give you back the money or the peace of mind or the year of stress I caused. But I need you to know that I understand now what I did was evil. And I'm trying to become someone who would never do that again. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. I read that letter 3 times, felt complicated emotion, anger that he'd done it in the first place, bitterness that sorry doesn't undo harm, but also something else, a small recognition that acknowledging what you did wrong matters. I didn't respond. I didn't forgive him, but I kept the letter because it mattered that he finally told the truth. At 70, I'm still in my house, the house David and I bought, the house we raised our children in, the house I fought to keep. I refinanced it after the legal battle, used some of the judgment money I'd recovered to pay off the mortgage completely. Now I own it free and clear. No payments, no debt, just mine. Emily suggested I move, get something smaller, easier to maintain. But I can't. This house is my life. David and I planted the garden together. We renovated the kitchen. We painted every room. His workshop is still in the garage, his tools still hanging on the wall. Leaving would feel like losing him again, so I stay, I maintain it. I pay someone to help with heavy work, but I'm still here, still in my home, that Michael tried to steal. And every day I'm here, I remember what I learned. That family doesn't always mean loyalty. That grief makes you vulnerable. That documents can be forged, but truth can be proven. And that fighting for what's yours is always worth it. I started volunteering with a local senior legal aid organization, helping other elderly people facing property disputes, inheritance fraud, deed theft, elder financial abuse. I share my story, show them it's possible to fight back, explain what documents to gather, what questions to ask attorneys, what red flags to watch for. Over 3 years, I've helped 23 seniors navigate property disputes. 12 of them won their cases, kept their homes, exposed fraud. One woman, 81, was facing a deed theft scam. Someone had forged her signature on a quitclaim deed transferring her house to a stranger. She didn't even know until the new owner tried to evict her. I helped her find an attorney, explained the forensic analysis process, sat with her through court hearings. She won. The deed was voided. The scammer was prosecuted, and she kept her house. That's what I do now. Use what I learned to help others, because elder property fraud is everywhere, and most people don't know how to fight it. They think the documents look official. The person has lawyers. I must be wrong. But documents can be forged. Lawyers can be hired by criminals. And official looking doesn't mean legitimate. You have to fight. You have to get your own attorney. You have to demand proof. You have to verify signatures and notarizations and ownership records, because your home is worth fighting for. At 72, I was invited to speak at a local community center, Elder Financial Protection Workshop. 50 seniors attended. I told my story, how Michael forged the will, how he tried to evict me, how I fought back with forensic analysis and investigation, how I won. After the talk, 11 people came up to me, all of them facing similar situation. Adult children claiming ownership of parents' homes, forged powers of attorney, deed theft scams, quitclaim deeds signed under pressure. One man, 76, told me his daughter had convinced him to sign a quitclaim deed just to make estate planning easier. Then she'd sold the house out from under him, given him 30 days to move out. He was living with a friend, didn't know he could fight. I connected him with Susan Martinez. She took his case. We proved the daughter had used undue influence, pressured him when he was grieving his wife, made him sign without reading. The transfer was voided. He got his house back. His daughter was charged with elder financial abuse. Another woman, 83, was facing eviction from a home she'd lived in for 52 years. A company claimed they'd bought the property through a tax deed sale. She'd missed property tax payments during a hospital stay. The county had seized and sold her house. She owed $12,000 in back taxes. The company had paid that. Now they owned her house. Or so they claimed. I helped her investigate. Found out the tax deed sale was fraudulent. The company had forged county documents. They weren't legitimate buyers. They were scammers who targeted elderly people with tax problems. We reported them to the district attorney. State investigation uncovered 17 similar frauds. Elderly homeowners tricked into thinking they'd lost their houses to tax sales. The company was shut down, criminal charges filed, and the woman got her house back. These weren't isolated incidents. They were patterned, systematic targeting of elderly homeowners, people who were vulnerable, grieving, confused, alone. And I realized something. What happened to me wasn't just Michael being a bad person, it was part of a larger problem. Elder property fraud was an epidemic. The National Council on Aging estimates that financial exploitation of seniors costs $5 billion annually. Property theft is a huge part of that. Homes stolen through forged, fraudulent wills, undue influence, scam tax sales, and most victims don't fight back because they don't know they can, because they think the documents must be legitimate, because they're scared and alone. I decided to do more than just help individual cases. I contacted state legislators, told them we needed stronger laws, better protections, easier ways for seniors to challenge property fraud. One legislator, Assemblywoman Rodriguez, was interested. She'd been hearing similar stories, elderly constituents losing homes to fraud. She asked me to testify at a legislative hearing. I did. Told my story, showed the forged will, explained how Michael almost succeeded, detailed how expensive and difficult it was to fight back, and proposed specific reforms. Require forensic analysis for any will transferring property filed within 6 months of death. Create a state fund to help seniors afford attorneys in property fraud cases. Mandate that notaries verify signers' identities with multiple forms of ID. Increase penalties for property fraud targeting elderly victims. Establish a property fraud hotline where seniors can report suspicious documents. The hearing was covered by local news. My story resonated. Other victims came forward, shared their experiences, showed the scope of the problem. 6 months later, the legislature passed the Senior Homeowner Protection Act, included most of my recommendations, created the Legal Aid Fund, strengthened notary requirements, increased penalties. The bill was nicknamed Barbara's Law by advocates. I didn't ask for that, but I accepted it because it meant Michael's attempt to steal my home had led to protections for thousands of others. Before I tell you what happened when Michael got out of prison, I need to ask you something. Are you still with me? Does this story matter to you? If you've dealt with if you've worried about losing your home, if you've been betrayed by family, hit that like button right now. It helps other people facing property fraud find this story. People who need to know they can fight back. Subscribe to this channel for weekly stories of people over 50 who were targeted and refused to be victims. And drop a comment telling me, have you experienced property fraud? Has family tried to take advantage after a death? I want to hear your stories, because the more we share, the more we protect each other. Now back to what happened at 73. Michael was released from prison after serving 26 months, got out early for good behavior. I knew he was out because he contacted Emily, asked her to arrange a meeting with me, said he wanted to apologize in person. Emily asked if I'd consider it. Mom, she said, you don't have to, you don't owe him anything. But he's been writing letters, says he's changed, completed programs in prison, wants to make amends. I thought about it, then agreed. We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. Emily came with me. Michael looked different, thinner, older. Prison had aged him. Barbara, he said, thank you for meeting me. I know you didn't have to. I know you have every right to never speak to me again. I'm listening, I said. I owe you a real apology, he said, not just a letter. Face to face, what I did was evil. I tried to steal your home while you were grieving my father. I forged his signature. I lied. I put you through a year of hell, and I did it for money. Because I was in debt, that's unforgivable. I've spent 2 years thinking about this, about what kind of person does what I did, and I realized I became someone I hate, someone who preys on vulnerable people, someone who betrays family, someone who lies and cheats and justifies it. I don't want to be that person anymore. So I'm telling you, face to face, I'm deeply sorry for what I did. I know sorry doesn't fix it. I know the damage is done, but I need you to know that I understand now how wrong it was, and I'm committed to never being that person again. I looked at him, saw genuine remorse, or what looked like it. Michael, I said, I appreciate the apology, but apologies don't undo harm. You tried to make me homeless. You stole money I had to spend defending myself. You made me doubt my own memories of my husband. You damaged my relationship with David's other children. You put me through hell. I can't forgive that. I understand, he said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just trying to acknowledge what I did and to tell you that I'm paying restitution, $20 a month from my wages. It'll take forever, but I'm paying what I owe. $20 a month, I said, on a $343,000 judgment. That'll take 1,400 years. I know, he said. It's all I can afford. I make minimum wage. I'm living in a halfway house. My credit is destroyed. I can't get a decent job with a felony conviction. I'm trying, but I destroyed my own life. That's not my problem, I said. You made choices, you live with consequences. I know, Michael said. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I just wanted you to know I understand what I did was wrong and that I'm trying to be better. The meeting ended. I left feeling empty, not satisfied, not forgiving, just tired. Tired of the whole thing. Michael's apology didn't change anything. I still had the memories of fear, still had the legal bill, still had the knowledge that family had betrayed me, but at least he'd acknowledged it. That was more than some people got. At 74, the Senior Homeowner Protection Act started showing results. The State Legal Aid Fund had helped 83 elderly homeowners fight property fraud in its first year. 47 of them won their case, kept their homes, exposed fraud. One case particularly moved me. A 90-year-old man whose nephew had used a power of attorney to sell his uncle's house, kept the money. The uncle didn't even know until he received an eviction notice. With legal aid funding, he hired an attorney. They proved the nephew had abused the power of attorney, that the uncle never authorized the sale. The sale was voided. The nephew was prosecuted, and the uncle got his house back. He called me. Mrs. Chen, he said, I heard you were behind the law that helped me. I wanted to thank you. Without that legal aid fund, I couldn't have afforded to fight. I'd be homeless. You saved my home. I didn't save it, I said. You fought for it. I just helped create a tool, but you used it. That's what matters. That conversation reminded me why I'd fought so hard, not just for my home, but to make it easier for others to fight for theirs. I continued working with the Senior Legal Aid Organization, but I also started doing something else. Training attorneys. Many lawyers don't specialize in elder law or property fraud. They don't know the red flags, the forensic techniques. the investigation method. So I partnered with the State Bar Association, created a continuing legal education course, identifying and litigating elder property fraud. I taught attorneys what to look for: signature inconsistency, suspicious timing, witnesses who can't be verified, notaries whose commissions expired, financial motives, search histories showing planning. I shared my case as an example, showed them Dr. Foster's forensic report, Jennifer Wallace's affidavit about the fake notary, Michael's search history, the full investigation that proved forgery. Over 3 years, I trained 426 attorneys across the state, all of them now equipped to spot and fight property fraud. Many of them took cases they wouldn't have recognized before, helped clients they wouldn't have known how to help. At 76, I was invited to speak at a national elder law conference. 3,000 attorneys from across the country. I told my story, explained the investigation, showed the documents, described the legal strategies Susan had used. After my presentation, I was approached by attorneys from 12 different states. All of them said the same thing. We need these protections in our state. We need this training. Can you help? I worked with the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. We created a model bill based on California's Senior Homeowner Protection Act, provided it to state legislators nationwide. Over the next 5 years, 18 states adopted similar laws, creating legal aid funds, strengthening notary requirements, increasing penalties for elder property fraud. Not all of them credited me. Most of them modified the bill to fit their state's needs. But the core protections remained, and thousands of seniors across the country were now better protected. All because I'd refused to leave my house. All because I'd fought back against Michael's forgery. All because I'd taken my pain and turned it into policy. At 78, I received an award from AARP, Champion of Elder Rights, for protecting seniors from property fraud, for changing laws in 19 states, for training hundreds of attorneys, for helping hundreds of elderly people keep their homes. The ceremony was attended by 200 people, including 12 seniors I'd personally helped, including Susan Martinez, the attorney who'd fought for me, including Assemblywoman Rodriguez, who'd championed Barbara's law, and including Emily, my daughter, who'd stood by me through everything. Emily spoke at the ceremony. My mother was 68 when her stepson tried to steal her home. She said she could have accepted it, could have moved, could have let him win, but she fought, not just for herself, but for every senior who faces. She's changed laws, she's trained attorneys, she's helped hundreds of people. She's proved that being targeted doesn't make you a victim. Fighting back makes you a champion. At 79, something unexpected happened. David's daughter from his first marriage contacted me, Sarah, Michael's younger sister. We hadn't spoken since Michael's trial. "Barbara," she said, "I need to talk to you about Michael and about what happened." "I'm listening," I said. "I lied at the trial," she said. "When I said I didn't help Michael, I did. I gave him $5,000 for attorneys. Before you challenged the will, he told me Dad had left the house to him, that you were refusing to leave, that he needed help enforcing Dad's wishes. I believed him. I thought you were the bad guy. When did you realize you were wrong?" I asked. "At the trial," she said. "When the forensic expert testified. When I saw the forged signature. When I realized Michael had lied to me, too. I felt sick. I'd helped him try to steal your home. I'd funded his fraud, and I was too ashamed to admit it. Why are you telling me now?" I asked. "Because Michael contacted me," she said. "He's struggling, can't find work, living in poverty, asking family for money. And I realized I can't help him because what he did to you is unforgivable. And what I did, helping him, is unforgivable too. I need to apologize. I should have apologized years ago, but I was a coward." "I appreciate that," I said. "But Sarah, you're not responsible for what Michael did. He lied to you? He manipulated you? You didn't know. But I should have questioned it," she said. "Dad loved you. Anyone who knew him could see that. Why would he leave the house to Michael when they barely spoke? I should have asked more questions. Instead, I just gave Michael money because he said he needed it. That's not fraud. That's being taken advantage of." "Yes," I said, "but I still feel guilty. And I wanted you to know that I understand now what really happened, that I'm sorry I contributed to it, and that if there's anything I can do to make it right, I will." "There's nothing to make right," I said. You didn't commit fraud. Michael did. But I appreciate you telling me the truth. After we hung up, I thought about forgiveness. I told Michael I couldn't forgive him, and I meant it. What he did was too deliberate, too cruel, too calculated. But Sarah? She'd been deceived. She'd tried to help family and been used. That's different. I called her back. Sarah, I said, I forgive you. You made a mistake, but you owned it. That matters. She cried. Thank you, she said. That means more than you know. At 80, I'm still in my house, still fighting for others, still training attorneys, still testifying in fraud cases, still showing seniors they can fight back. The Senior Homeowner Protection Act has helped over 400 people keep their homes in California alone. Similar laws in 18 other states have helped thousands more. I've trained over 800 attorneys, helped prosecute 37 fraud cases, recovered over $6 million for victims, and I've shared my story hundreds of times. In classrooms, in courtrooms, in community centers, in legislative hearings. Each time I tell people, your home is worth fighting for. Documents can be forged, signatures can be faked, but truth can be proven. Get a forensic expert, investigate the notary, check search histories, demand proof. Don't accept what you're told just because it looks official. Because criminals count on you being too scared or too confused to fight. They count on you thinking, I'm just an old person. I don't understand these things. They must be right. But you're not just an old person. You're a property owner. You have rights. And you can fight. One woman at a workshop asked me, Mrs. Chen, how did you find the courage to fight? You were grieving. You were alone. You were facing lawyers and court orders. How did you not give up? I thought about that question, then answered, I didn't feel courageous. I felt terrified. But I knew one thing for certain. That house was mine. David and I bought it together. We lived there for 27 years, and no forged document was going to take it from me. Courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and fighting anyway. And sometimes, anger is stronger than fear. At 81, I decided to write a book, not a memoir, a manual. How to protect your home from inheritance fraud, a senior's guide to fighting back. I wanted something practical, something elderly people could use if they faced what I'd faced. The book explained everything step by step. How to recognize forged signatures, how to verify notarization, how to hire a forensic document examiner, how to find attorneys who specialize in elder law, how to document evidence, how to navigate probate court, how to press criminal charges, how to sue for elder abuse. I included case studies, my case, the 12 cases I'd personally helped, patterns to watch for, red flags that indicate fraud. The book was published by a university press, not a bestseller, but it found its audience, sold 32,000 copies in 2 years, used in 47 elder law clinics, assigned reading in 12 law schools, distributed free to senior centers in California. One reader wrote to me, Mrs. Chen, I'm 74. My son tried to take my house using a forged quitclaim deed. I read your book. I followed your steps. I hired a forensic expert. I verified the notary. I proved it was fake. I kept my house. And my son is facing charges. Thank you for showing me this was possible. That letter meant everything, because that's the goal. Not just to tell my story, but to give people tools, to show them fighting is possible, to prove that being elderly doesn't mean being powerless. At 82, my health started declining, heart problems, mobility issues. I had to stop traveling for speaking engagements, but I continued working from home, consulting on cases, answering emails from seniors facing fraud, training attorneys via video call. The legal aid organization asked if I'd mentor young attorneys, people just starting elder law practice. I agreed. Over 2 years, I mentored 18 attorneys, taught them how to spot property fraud, how to investigate, how to build cases, how to fight for elderly clients. Many of them told me, law school didn't prepare us for this. We learned contracts and torts and property law, but not how to recognize when clients are being exploited, not how to investigate fraud, not how forensic analysis works. You've taught us what law school didn't. That was gratifying, knowing that even as I slowed down, the work continued. The attorneys I'd trained were helping clients. The laws I'd helped pass were protecting people. The book I'd written was empowering seniors. At 83, I received a call from Michael. First time in 4 years. Barbara, he said, I heard you're not well. I wanted to check on you. I'm fine, I said. Why are you calling? Because I heard you've been sick, he said. And I wanted you to know that regardless of our history, I hope you're okay. That's all. I appreciate that, I said. Michael, can I ask you something? Anything, he said. Do you really understand what you did? Or are you just sorry you got caught? I understand, he said. I tried to steal your home. I forged my dad's will. I put you through hell. I destroyed my own life in the process. I understand that fully. And I've spent years trying to become someone who would never do that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I get it, and that despite everything, I don't wish harm on you. Thank you, I said. That means something. We hung up. And I realized something. Forgiveness isn't required for closure. I still hadn't forgiven Michael. Probably never would, but I'd moved past it. I'd taken what he did and turned it into something good, and that was enough. At 84, Emily suggested I move in with her. Mom, she said, you're in this big house alone. You have health issues. What if something happened? I'll be fine, I said. I have a medical alert system. Neighbors check on me. I'm not leaving my house. But Mom, she said, be practical. What's more important, the house or your safety? This house is my safety, I said. It's where I feel David, where I remember our life, where I fought to stay. Leaving would feel like losing twice. First David, then the home we built together. I can't do that. Emily understood. She started visiting more, helping with maintenance, arranging for a caregiver to check on me daily. But I stayed. In the house Michael tried to steal. The house I'd fought to keep. My home.